Welcome to the Lounge Lizards podcast, recorded live at the 2024 Premium Cigar Association Convention and International Trade Show in Las Vegas. It's so good to have you here. It's a leisure and lifestyle podcast founded on our love of premium cigars, as well as whiskey, travel, food, work, and whatever else we feel like getting into. My name is Gizmo. Tonight I'm joined by Senator, Pagoda, Grinder, and Bam Bam. And our plan is to smoke a cigar, drink some rum, talk about life, and of course, have some laughs. So take this as your 126th official invitation to join us and become a card-carrying lounge lizard. Plan to meet us here once a week. We're going to smoke a New World cigar tonight, share our thoughts on it, and give you our formal lizard rating. We share some of our favorite moments from the PCA Show, including opening day presentations from Foundation, Padrón and La Aurora, our impressions of the trade show floor, and we talk about meeting a few lizard listeners at an after party, all among a variety of other things for the next 90 minutes. So sit back, get your favorite drink, light up a cigar, and enjoy as we pair 20-year aged Flor de Caña rum with the EP Carrillo Allegiance Sidekick. A Nicaraguan Robusto tonight on the pod, live from Las Vegas, the PCA Show 2024. From EP Carrillo, it's called the Allegiance Sidekick. It's a 50 ring gauge cigar by 5 inches long. And boys, we are live from Las Vegas.
Yes, we are.
Viva Las Vegas.
Yeah, Viva Las Vegas. I like that one. Got to get that wig on, Senator.
So this is the fourth EP Carrillo we've done on the podcast tonight. And boys, this is our first location recording with a review. And it's nice to be here at PCA 2024.
Yes, sir.
Phenomenal experience so far.
We have a lot to get to today, boys. But first, let's cut this thing. So we're getting on the cold draw on the wrapper. The cold draw is really, really interesting. Different. I can't pick out what that one
Is that cinnamon?
major note I'm getting.
Something like that.
I get cedar, barnyard, and cinnamon.
Yeah.
Definitely cedar.
Cinnamon's there for me.
I don't get the cinnamon.
Oh, it's there.
It is there. You're right.
I don't know what I'm getting.
Oh, boy. I'm looking at a gizmo cut. Bam, Bam. What happened?
Uh-oh. Oh, wow. He took about 3/4 of an inch off.
And it's crooked. I was in a hurricane.
It is a cutter. It is a cutter. I think that's.
All right. Take it easy.
You know, we blame it on the cutter this time, please.
No, actually, I was in a hurry to catch up with you guys.
He's just tired. It's been a long week.
Kind of. Yeah.
Hard week, smoking cigars, drinking rum.
But the draw is wide open. Beautiful.
It is beautiful.
All right, boys, let's light this thing. The EP Carrillo Allegiance, the Sidekick. Again, it's a Robusto 50 ring gauge cigar by 5 inches long. And this is the fourth line from EP Carrillo. In addition to the Pledge, the Encore, and the La Historia, they added the Allegiance to the line. And it's a Ecuadorian Sumatra seed wrapper, and the binder and filler are both from Nicaragua, made in the Oliva factory in Esteli, Nicaragua.
I'll tell you, right off the light, it's really quite delicious.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's the wrapper is interesting.
I was about to say, it's got
very,
this light, dark brown marbling.
It's
going
marbly.
on.
Yeah.
Really unique. A slight toothiness, but interesting wrapper.
Here, like we like everything with allegiance in it.
This it has a very good flavor.
Yeah.
I would say it's like a medium body. And it has a hint of like a Cuban type of, I don't want to use the word twang, but there's a little bit of a bite on the front of my tongue that is similar to some good Cohiba that I've had. Some like there is a little bit of that there.
Yeah.
There's definitely a twang. When you first, even on the cold draw, I got twang on the flavor of the wrapper. And you know, it's not even a salty kind. It's like a spicy twang.
It is. There's a bit of a spice. It could be, if you smoke through this a little too quickly, it's definitely going to back up on you, I think. There's nicotine forward for me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So this line has 4 sizes. Like I said, we're smoking the Sidekick tonight, which is the 50 ring gauge by 5. There's also the Confidant, 52 ring gauge by 6 inch Toro. The Wingman, a 54 ring gauge by 6 7/8 inches. That's a big cigar. And the Chaperone, which is the biggest of them all, 58 ring gauge by 6 1/4. And the intention was that they made each Vitola to reflect what they view as the characters in an allegiance.
Right.
So when a group of friends, the Sidekick, the Confidant, the Wingman, and the Chaperone. So that's the idea here with this blend.
We probably don't know what the cost is on this yet, do we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
These are about $12.
Okay.
Very ornate band on it. Unique to the Allegiance. This one's green, where I think the pledge line is blue. The La Historia is
Gold.
gold
and red.
Gold and red. And then the Encore is a little different as well.
Mhm.
But this one is all green, custom to this cigar. Really ornate. Very nice bands on this cigar.
He always has beautiful bands.
The thing I also like about all those cigars and lines that you mentioned, just the box press, they always feel great in the hand.
That's
That's
true.
one thing with EP Carrillo I just love.
Yeah.
It's like a smooth box press. It's
Yeah.
not like a rigid like you'd find on a Padrón or
Correct.
even some of the Oliva cigars.
Right,
It's like a smoother box press
Yeah.
on these. So, boys, as we mentioned, we are in Las Vegas. We have a lot going on here at PCA 2024. We're set up in the back of the trade hall where all of the business is happening behind us. We kind of stole a table and a bunch of chairs and set up our stuff.
Lizards always make do.
We're making it happen.
Correct.
And I think the biggest piece of breaking news, boys, is that I'm wearing a sport coat.
And looking sharp. Looking
Very
sharp.
honestly,
I want it on the record, Bam.
I am extremely impressed with your wardrobe. This entire experience.
Gizmo is properly adulting. I'm
absolutely.
very happy and impressed.
I'm not enjoying it, I'll be honest with you.
Although that Kanye hoodie made it appearance several times.
Not at the show. Not at the show.
Correct. That's true.
Yeah, we have to start with our flight out here where
Oh.
Bam has Gizmo get out of his seat and says, just take a couple steps back and say, see, look, he's dressed like Kanye West.
Yeah, I had you
He's got a
turn around.
Kanye hoodie, his sneakers. And then Gizmo got to the show and he cleaned up well.
Snapped up very quickly.
And,
Beautiful.
and Bam certainly made his presence known on that flight for sure.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
We met someone from the
True.
show who was 2 rows behind him.
That's
and
right.
said, were you on a United flight
On
to
Thursday.
Vegas on
Yeah,
Thursday?
it's a little scary that people recognize me. I don't like that. I'm not sure if I like it.
You look like Alec Baldwin.
Correct. I hear that many times. I'm not sure if I like that either.
And who was
Honestly.
the other guy? Javier.
Javier Bardem was another one that people were saying.
These are very quality,
I know.
comparisons.
Yeah,
so
they're
you
not
should
like
be
saying
happy.
like Mr. Bean or
I
something.
appreciate that.
Like
Thank you.
We like to say he's aging well.
Yes, I am. I would like to think so.
So, boys, we are here in Vegas, and I think the consensus among the group here, and we've all been to Vegas before, is that Vegas is not great.
No.
It's not great. It's cold as shit right now. There's no
Very
question
cold.
about that. But I don't feel good when I come here. I mean, when we come to the show and we're smoking cigars, that's all great. But the other stuff in Las Vegas, it's just not my scene.
Yeah.
You know?
It makes me sad, just like the whole setup, the development of the strip and everything around it that suits the
Yeah.
how we what goes on goes on here, and even in the developments around the city where
Yeah.
we're kind of staying. It's
Yeah.
just a little sad.
It's just like the dichotomy of being at PCA where we've had so many genuine, real, authentic conversations with great people throughout this industry. And then the complete opposite
Yeah.
outside of here where everything in Vegas is just manufactured
Right.
and fake and overpriced. It doesn't feel real.
Very ironic.
And
Yeah.
it's so hard to enjoy that. It's like, any restaurant, you're spending a silly amount of money just to get a decent meal here. There's not a whole lot to do here, besides gamble and drink and smoke. I'll never be a big Vegas guy.
No.
I come out here at least once a year for various other professional endeavors, and it's always this thing that I dread. It's one of these things that I dread because I feel, as Giz mentioned, I feel bad when I'm here and when I leave, and I'm happy to be home.
Correct.
Well, I guess I'm the only outlier there.
Waiting for you to say that.
Yeah, love the casinos, love the vibe, love the people, hang around, in casinos, at the bars. It's March Madness, and
It's always better when you win, though.
I did win, but hey, listen, Vegas is Vegas.
Grinder mentioned something that I wanted to talk about. That you said how interesting it was to see how much of the year's business gets done at this trade show for the cigar industry.
Oh, absolutely. So I was, we visited a lot of the booths, and we're just inquiring about, commerce. We all have business minds, and all of the sales associates I spoke to, even like the head personas, to see a guy like Rocky Patel hustle his ass off
Oh, yeah.
to make a fucking sale.
Yeah.
Back to back to back. We were hanging out at his booth for a little bit. He had a fantastic booth with music, live music, and and some beer for us. Yeah. And the guy is just, and this is ubiquitous across all the the operators and all the brands. People are working hard.
Oh yeah.
And you ask the questions like, what's going on here? These guys are taking orders. They have their iPads out. They're talking business. They're talking about new products. And I said, well, what's going on? Like, how much of your business? He said, honestly, we set up the entire year here. We get everything lined up. We introduce the products. We make sure we have our orders, and we take it in. And this is our forecast. We have our forecast, and it sets our inventory, and this sets our whole entire year. If we have a good show, we have a good year.
It's exciting to see, honestly.
With all that happening that Grinder just detailed, with all of the business that's being done, the kindness and the generosity with time and the warmth of the reception.
And the open conversations.
Yeah, when you walk into
generosity
a booth
of their
you're
time.
Talking with Jorge Padrón and you're talking with Carlito Fuente and Rocky Patel and all of these guys, it's really amazing.
Yeah,
the
it's
amount
surprising.
It really, really is.
To have that amount of access with, you look at a guy like George Padrón, who's so, he's got a lot of demand on his time. He took time just to speak to us, to tell us what the cigars he has coming out this year. We had a wonderful presentation for a new cigar he's releasing this year, and even across all the different brands, Carlito, EP Carrillo, Ernesto. We spoke to Ernesto for 10 minutes yesterday. This is wonderful access. These guys are salt of the earth. They're working hard. It's a blue collar business, but a luxury good, and you have to understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing that's remarkable is clearly all of these guys have not forgotten the opportunity that this trade show years ago provided for them, that they to this day take so seriously and have never taken for granted. I mean, you hear stories of even brands that are large now and we respect, like Padrón, and them coming to this trade show and, hoping that they would break even and not lose money coming to it and get just enough sales out of it for it to be worthwhile. It's not cheap to have a booth at a trade show like this. And it's just incredible. Like some of even these small boutique brands that we were able to meet as we're walking through, I hope 5-10 years from now that those brands are telling a similar story of, if it wasn't for a trade show like this, we wouldn't be where we are today. And so I just love the opportunity it provides for small brands and the largest of brands, how they haven't forgotten where they came from and how seriously they take this and how generous they are with their time and everything that they share.
And they all show up here. They all show up here. As owners of businesses, especially the larger brands, they don't need to show up here. They could sell the sales team. Yeah. But they all show up here and they personally guide. They take the retail outlets very, very seriously. And that's the way of distribution. And it's fantastic to see all of them come and work hard and hustle, like Grinder mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and for me personally, I haven't ever been to an event like this that centers around something that we love so much. It's very inspirational. And to have the access of the conversations, that alone completely took me by surprise. And you've all said it, how impressive it is to see someone like George and EP Carrillo and a few of the other major retailers working their asses off. It's just... I wasn't expecting it, honestly.
Beautiful boots, guys. We've got to talk about the boots.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about our favorite boots.
Yeah.
Really, it's the amount of time and effort that has gone into some of these beautiful displays. Amazing.
Yeah.
It's not like, a cookie cutter, trade shows where you have one stall after the other.
No.
They're elaborate.
Yeah,
and
so
they're
I
fantastic.
could certainly comment on design and craftsmanship. Like everything is uniquely designed. Everything is custom made. My question is, are they using it from show to show to the show, or are they doing a new booth at every event? That's a big question because it's so expensive.
I would imagine that there's no way that, like the Padrón booth, which is the central booth in the trade show, there's no way they're scrapping that every year and starting fresh. I think they're using that booth as the construct of their, of their presentation each year.
They are, and we've heard that. George Padrón actually mentioned that most of what's there they have used trade show to trade show. Obviously, there's some new elements. I mean, they have a new cigar release with the 60th. Obviously, that whole display is brand new. In the Fuente booth, the Padrón Fuente collaboration, that part of that is certainly new. But I think the thing that was so cool, you think about the first day that the trade show opened, as media, we were allowed to come in actually before any of the retailers were by about 2 hours.
Early in the morning,
And so us literally being some of the first people to walk through this and just you could see them still making final preparations for that 10 a.m. opening time and vacuuming the rugs in their booth and making sure everything is perfectly aligned the way they want it, and the stress that comes with that. There's so much pride that these brands take in displaying their product and telling their story. And for me, like Bam said, the inspirational part of this, that was just so exciting to see.
Yeah. I was tired yesterday, tired today, but as we walked into the space, kind of invigorated me. You know, it's just so cool to see.
So and it just smells so great.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're walking around with hundreds of people or thousands of people. I guess there's about 7,000 attendees this year.
The aroma is ridiculous.
And the aroma is amazing, but the ventilation is very good.
Ventilation is A+. I have to say, I literally expected to leave this trade show with every item of clothing that I wore reeking of cigar smoke. And somehow, I mean, the high ceilings have to help at this big convention center here in Vegas. Every night I've come back to our place and my clothes don't smell that much of cigar smoke. The ventilation in here, honestly, is better than the ventilation in any cigar lounge I've ever been at anywhere.
Absolutely. You think they light like a big Lamborghini at the end of the show?
It's the size of a car.
1,000-gallon Lamborghini. So before the whole trade show and exhibition floor opened on Saturday and Sunday, and Monday are the 3 days that the actual trade show is open. On Friday was a pre-event, which started with a documentary, I guess, which was kind of highlighted by Pete Johnson of Tatuai. He was in it quite a bit on Friday around noon. And Senator, you said you really had some nice takeaways from that.
I was just really shocked. I mean, for me, coming to a trade show like this for the first time, I expected there to be such a huge divide between New World cigars, which is represented at this trade show, and Cuban cigars that obviously, we review equally. And I was just shocked that the first thing we walk in this big convention hall and they have these huge screens running this kind of documentary and video talking about Cuban tobacco and Cuban refugees and the role that Cubans have played in the history of just cigar production, and then obviously even New World production today. And I just was shocked. I felt like there would almost be a concerted effort to kind of box out any mention of the role that Cuba and Cubans have played in this, since they're competing obviously with that product in many respects. And I was just so gratified to see them embracing the true history and the role that Cuba's played in this product that we all love. So for me, that was just like as great of a start to this as possible, where it was bringing together these two worlds that we try to do on this podcast that I don't think happens enough outside.
It's probably not a coincidence that there are a handful of marcas that began in Cuba and that have transitioned to the New World, and they happen to also be the most elite cigars that we all pursue.
Yeah.
Why is that?
You also, I mean, you can't disregard the fact that a lot of the great brands we have in the New World kind of series, the New World divide here, are, families, Cuban families that started their business. They brought it over
longevity,
to other parts of the Caribbean, to the United States, and that rich heritage is still there. It's something they're proud of. It's something we're so happy to embrace. And as Senator mentioned, it was beautiful to see.
There's one large community, guys. It's one community at the end of the day, and it's omnipresent, at least at this trade shows.
So following that documentary premiere was the pairing that La Aurora presented with the La Aurora 120th anniversary cigar with the rum that they have, which is E. Leon Jimenez. And I was shocked, honestly. I came into that thinking it was going to be potentially a dud, and I was shocked how good both the cigar and the rum were.
Yeah.
Very impressive. We're going to do those on the podcast for sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, to Gizmo's point, my interaction with La Aurora as a brand has been relatively limited. I can't say that in my limited interaction it's been a particularly good one. And so I had the same healthy skepticism that you did about that. And also the idea of this rum being developed by La Aurora, that the family that started La Aurora, just was shocking to me. I don't know of really any other cigar brand or company that has gotten into the spirits business.
I was about to say, I don't think there's another marker that's doing that.
Yeah. And to your point, both were excellent.
Yeah. And can we talk about that cigar? 120. Dude. It was so delicious.
It was shocking, honestly.
I've had La Aurora in my past. That is absolutely the very best cigar that they've ever made, that I've ever had. All of the other experiences that I've had were fairly mediocre.
What's fantastic to see is we had access. We're talking about access. We're talking to the CEO of La Aurora North America, and we're talking about our podcast, how much we love cigars, how we have a truth, we have integrity, we very serious about rating cigars to our palate, and we have honesty with our audience. For Ed to come up to us and say, "Listen, I think I know what you guys would like. You're really not going to like a lot of this stuff on this wall for the booth. Let me show you the goods," because he knows that they have a different market profile for every different customer and different cigars that fit different palates. And to have that access to the CEO of North America, basically put a cigar in our hands and say, "This is what you really guys, this is what you want."
And he knows a lizard when he sees one.
He knows a lizard.
So following that event was an incredible presentation from Nick Malello of Foundation Cigars on the Connecticut River Valley and Connecticut tobacco. It was eye-opening.
Yeah.
He spent 48 minutes or 50 minutes or something just deep diving, really with no notes aside from the PowerPoint that he had up, deep diving into the history of tobacco going back 250,000 years, then to 14,000 years, up to the present. I mean, really, really went deep. And I learned a lot about not just Connecticut tobacco, but tobacco in general. Yeah. And certainly the approach of the Connecticut farmers, and now in Ecuador, the people who are growing Connecticut tobacco, and how that impacts all of the brands that we smoke,
right?
Potentially including Cuban cigars.
It's good to see. It's actually really, really good to see how committed they are to the craft and how knowledgeable they are about their craft.
Nick is a technician, and when we sat there and he went through slide after slide, just the level of detail in the presentation itself was just so incredibly impressive and very technical and detailed. I think we can all appreciate that. For what I do visually, it was just incredibly well presented.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just so fascinating that, you think of a lot of the individuals who lead and run these big cigar brands, and, they're at heart, they're business people, they're manufacturers, but they're not necessarily experts on the growing process. They're not farmers by trade, right? They have folks who run that. Even in Cuba, when we've talked about this, we've gone out to the farms to talk to those people and learn more about the growing process. And when we're in Havana, we're learning more about the manufacturing and production process. For Nick Malillo to have so much depth as to the growing process as well as the manufacturing process, I learned a ton from it.
It's incredible.
I was shocked at how knowledgeable he is about all of this. And for him to stand up there and say that this is the first time he's actually given that presentation, I mean, it was so well done. You would have thought he does this every week.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, he said it was the first time.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
He's fully integrated in every step of the way with his company.
Oh, very deep.
Absolutely.
Well, he talked about his story, right? And he's been in it for a long time. And he's played a lot of different roles, and he has so much intimacy with the farming process, and you can see that passion. He talks about the people. He's talking about obviously very specific growing climates and acclimating different seed to different climates. He knows what the hell he's talking about.
And he's lived it. He lived in Esteli for a few years at a very young age.
And didn't he start in a cigar shop when he was a kid?
Yeah, he had an incredible history.
That was his first
15 years old
entree into the business.
Yeah. The best part is I'm excited for when we have Nick Malillo come on the pod. We've obviously, we had some nice conversations with him after his presentation, and I'm excited about some opportunities to have him share with our listeners, more of his story, and more broadly, I think a lot of education around the product that we all love and smoke.
So, boys, we're well into the first third here on the EP Carrillo Allegiance Sidekick. What are you guys thinking? This is a pretty damn good cigar.
Really enjoying it. You talk about a little bit of the twang. I'm experiencing it. I think the finish is, medium to long, and for me, and I'm not. I'm like it's just completely.
It's a clean finish. Yeah. It's very nice.
It is. There's an odd Cuban-esque quality, like that clean finish. Right? For me, fuller New World cigars, the finish really lingers in a way that hours after smoking that cigar, I can still vividly taste and remember what I was smoking. With a Cuban cigar, it's usually a lighter, cleaner finish, where an hour later, it's like I have a clean palate and I'm on to the next thing. This has a lot of that, which is really nice. I've had one of these before. One thing I'm actually impressed with here, we talk about humidity, obviously, a lot. And, usually cigars you get are pretty wet. Even at many retailers, we complain about how they're storing them at 70 RH and it's too high, even 72, some of these retailers. And this clearly is well maintained, because the Allegiance I had prior to this, I'm certain was wet, and I did not have the same experience flavor-wise that I'm getting out of this cigar now. So I'm really glad that we're doing this, and that this was clearly kept well, because it's a whole different experience.
I mean, I've been retrohaling this whole time.
Me too.
And
Me three.
The
Me 4.
We need a review on it.
I'm the outlier again.
you talk about clean finish. Sometimes the retro hair really hits you. This is a rich cigar with a lot of flavor, but of clean finish, and you feel that in your retro hair.
For me, I am getting very slight dessert quality.
I tried retrohaling.
Don't do that.
I think the sinuses don't help.
No. For me, I am getting a slight dessert quality to this cigar.
I agree.
Just a touch.
Did you hear
Almost
that,
like
Pagoda?
almost like a tart. Like a tart dessert.
I can't put my finger on it. That's pretty accurate. It's really very good. Very good.
All right, boys, let's try our pairing tonight. We are very lucky to be sitting with Luis Baez, the global ambassador of Flor de Caña, and we have an amazing 20-year aged rum.
You guys you're in for a treat. I think this 20-year is fantastic, and I think it's gonna pair beautifully with the cigar that you guys have. It's that Nicaraguan terroir, right? It's Esteli, it's Chinandega, it's Nicaragua. It's just a beautiful smoke and a beautiful sip to go along with it.
Excellent. I'm so excited about this. Pagoda and I were walking around the trade show, and we happened to hit the rum in the back of the trade show, and we were so generous to meet Luis, who shared a little bit about the brand. I would love for him to talk more about it for our listeners. But as we, with the Cigar Podcast, looking to pair something, we had tried the 12-year expression, the 18-year, and the 25. And Luis pulled a little something out from behind the bar and
Gotta
said,
have the special stuff for that. Right. Plus, it makes you feel that much more special, right? It's like,
yeah.
let me pull this out from
That's right.
underneath the table.
I think we've overstayed your booth, and we came many times.
My booth is happy that you're happy. So
We are very happy.
yes.
And
Plus,
we-
I like a crowd around it.
And
All
we're
right.
typically happier once we leave.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's the great thing about rum, right?
Yeah.
Rum is fun, and at the end of the day, and I think that every spirit has a different buzz to it, and I think the buzz of rum is just the best one you're gonna have. So
Absolutely.
enjoy.
I want to try this thing, boys. Let's sip it.
Let's do it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Salud.
everybody. Thanks, Luis.
So what you're gonna find with this 20-year, and I was telling you guys before, I love it because it stands out so much across the portfolio, right? So we have the 12, the 18, the 25. They're all 80 proof. This 20-year is 90 proof. So it has a little bit more bite, and it's the only one that I feel in our portfolio has those little spicy notes that you're probably picking up right
Yep.
now.
Yeah.
And I love those with a cigar, right? It just makes that cigar stand out as well. I think it's a perfect pairing for cigar smokers.
Honestly, the bite for me is not that harsh. It's very smooth, and because it's so delicious and flavorful, it goes down very easily.
Yeah.
That's what I said to Luis.
Yeah.
When we first tried this, what's remarkable is with 90 proof, it has more structure, which pairs nicely with a fuller body Nicaraguan cigar, but there's not an aggressive bite.
That's
It's
true.
still very smooth. It's still a great sipping rum. So I'm just really impressed. And I think for Luis's context, when we look for spirits, we're often looking for spirits that are additive free. There's not a sugar added in the process. And it's hard to find, especially in the rum world, where I'm not sure that there's as much kind of regulation around what constitutes a rum based on the countries that are producing it, in the way that tequila is trying to move closer to that. Obviously, you have tons of additives in a number of tequila brands. So I was really intrigued when I started to hear you talk a little bit about the story. So I'd love for you to share with our listeners just a little bit about how Flor de Caña approaches.
Flor de Caña has been around since 1890. So that's 134 years of rum making, okay? It's still family owned, and we control the whole production process. So from field to bottle, we control everything. We have 35,000 acres of sugarcane. And imagine cutting down 35,000 acres, going it through a grinder, getting that juice out. We also own a sugar mill. So we separate the sugar, we separate the molasses or final honeys. That gets fermented. In the fermentation process, we capture all the CO2 emissions. We bottle that up, sell it to the carbonated drink industry
Wow.
in Nicaragua.
Oh, wow.
It's
That's
a
amazing.
zero
Wow.
waste process. that
Incredible.
we have.
Wow.
Yeah. Then after fermentation, it goes to distillation. It's a 5 column stills, 5 time distilled. Then it goes into aging, and our age statements are real. When you see a 20-year, it means every drop in that bottle is 20 years old.
That's
same
amazing.
for the 12, same for the 18, same for the 25. We also have a 30-year that's super exclusive. We don't have it here to taste. Sorry, guys, but it's
Damn you.
available. Yeah, I know. Next PCA in New Orleans,
We'll be
right?
here. Oh, we will be there.
Oh, we'll be there.
And then then it goes to the bottling and it reaches you guys. And we used to have one thing. When I say zero waste, we have one thing that was wasteful, and it's if you've ever had sugarcane and you've chewed on it, you have that fiber, right?
Yeah.
That's left over. Well, we use that fiber as biofuel, and that's how we power our plant. 100% renewable energy. That powers our plant. So it's not only sustainable, it's not only delicious, but it's also sustainable.
ESG, folks. ESG.
And here's the great thing, and you were talking about it, no additives, no sugar, and we always do the test. I did it with you guys, right? Pour it a little bit on your hands, rub your hands together. Is there a sticky sensation? There is not.
Wow.
Because there's no sugar added to Flor de Caña. Everything is natural. The color, the aroma, the flavor, all natural.
So going to the aroma, I get a buttery, almost a slight caramel note on the nose.
Yeah.
Really fantastic and unique.
It's beautiful, and we're aged in ex-bourbon barrels, so you're gonna pick up a lot of those bourbon notes.
Yeah.
Because that's where we're aging for 30 or in this case 20 years. And the great thing about aging in Nicaragua is that I don't know if you guys have been, but the climate is really hot and humid, right? And so just like if you guys go down to Miami Beach and lay down on the on the ocean, you guys are going to start sweating a little bit, maybe just a little bit. Well, the same kind of thing happens to the wood, right? It expands because of the heat, and there's that much more interaction. And because the weather doesn't change in Nicaragua very often, we have continuous and
very consistent.
Yeah, it's very consistent. It doesn't stop and go, right? The weather is 80 to 90 degrees all year long.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you how do you control the climate? Do you have these aging barrels indoors that you're controlling the climate for?
We have them indoors, and we try to keep it at a certain temperature. The master distiller decides what the temperature is going to be. It's usually around 28, 29 degrees that we keep it all year long. Yeah.
I remember you mentioning yesterday that you had no sugar. And then, we were talking about a different rum, and, I think it was aged in 2 different types of barrels. And you said, in fact, you came and you said, you sense a sweetness. Is it aged in 2 different barrels?
Yes.
And could you elaborate a little bit more on that in terms of just sticking to 1 barrel as opposed to 2?
It's just the traditional way that we've done it, throughout the 134 years of company history. Nothing wrong with aging in different barrels. I think it's just different profiles. Again, nothing wrong with adding sugar. I mean, it goes to whatever someone's palate is. I'm sure that if you have younger rums that have a little bit more heat, you want to make that a little bit more palatable, and so you add the sugar to make it nicer to drink. At Flor de Caña, we don't need to do that. The rum is delicious just the way it is.
That's excellent.
It does drink very sophisticated. Yeah.
It does. And I think there's just such a universal appeal to a spirit like this. We have many listeners who are huge bourbon fans. I think the aging in bourbon barrels makes this really accessible to someone who loves bourbon, to folks like us who love rum. I can just see so many people who would appreciate a spirit like this, and I'm really glad we're trying it.
This 20-year is, I call it, like within our office, I call it the bourbon converter, because a bourbon drinker is going to like the 20-year. If they're looking for a little bit more punch than the traditional 80 proof that we have, but this 90 proof is delicious, and
That's outstanding.
we'll get some converts out there.
Yeah. I could have this with breakfast with my eggs.
Wow.
It's that good.
Well, I'll tell you what. It's a funny story. I make my own syrup at home, right, to make it like an old fashioned, which goes fantastic with this one.
Sure.
And what I do is I reuse the bottles to store the syrup. And so, it might have happened at some point where I pour the quote unquote syrup and it's not really syrup on the pancakes. And
There
so
we go.
I think I might have had that
rum
for
is
breakfast
fun.
too.
Rum
is fun.
Perfect.
We're coming to Luis's for breakfast.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Let's do
You
it.
already tried dessert with the 25 and the chocolate. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
That's a great idea.
That chocolate
for
is fantastic
rum
too, by the way.
pancakes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it is.
Beautiful.
It is.
So what is the MSRP on this bottle if someone were to find this at a retail shop?
This one is probably running somewhere between $100 and $120 in the U.S.
Yeah.
for the
for
20 years.
for 20 years aged. I mean,
It's a great price
phenomenal.
point.
Worth every dollar.
yeah.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And do you mix this for yourself personally when you make a cocktail?
I've had a daiquiri made
Really? With
with
this?
Wow.
And in Austin, Texas, there's a bar that has them on the menu, and they call it the Baller DAC.
Baller.
Yeah,
Love it.
So that's for ballers, right? But I would just have it over. But Nicaragua, like I said before, is really hot, so I just have it over ice, a little bit of an orange peel to freshen it up.
Yeah, I see
And
your
it
orange
is-
peel now.
Yep,
Yeah.
and it is delicious.
Very nice.
But it does go incredibly well with an old fashioned.
Wow.
incredibly well.
I got to try that because I love old fashioned. We all do love. We all love.
But you're the king of old
You are
fashioned.
You
the
like
king of
them just a
old-fashioned.
little more.
That's
Cigar,
correct.
Just a little more.
Well, try a chocolate bitter dash as well as the regular.
Oh, this is sounding like
aromatic.
heaven already.
Oh my gosh.
Big dessert guy.
when you drink, obviously Flor de Caña at home, and you're smoking a cigar, how best do you like to pair this?
How best what?
How best do you like to pair the cigar?
I try to go strong on strong. So if I'm having a really bold cigar, I'll have the 20-year. When I'm having a little bit lighter body cigar, I'll go with our 12 or our 18, which is super smooth. And when I have one of those like really, really, really special cigars, then I go with the 25.
There you go.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up, one thing I want to say, we started to really get into rum when we visited Cuba a couple years ago. And we love Cuban rum and that kind of softer style, but still full flavored. And I think that your brand very much aligns with some of that. The thing that's shocking still, we're here in Las Vegas. There are drinkers all over this city. We're at a very large casino hotel yesterday.
A new casino hotel, like
casino
brand new
hotel,
build.
and there are 3 rums to choose from on the entire bar selection.
Ridiculous.
There. And it's just outrageous.
It was
and
terrible.
so I'm so encouraged seeing brands like Flor de Caña who are at PCA getting the word out, because I think that the rum market as a whole hasn't told its story enough. And I think there are so many more consumers that would appreciate this. And had we not visited Cuba and by chance stumbled into rum
That's
in
exactly
the way
right.
that we have, and have now been down this rabbit hole of really pursuing other brands that kind of fit the flavor profile of the cigars that we like to review and what our listeners' palates are looking for. And I think you guys are just such a great expression of that. So we're so grateful to have you here.
Absolutely.
Well, I would recommend to those bar owners, bring in Flor de Caña and lots of it. And I would recommend to your listeners, just like you went to Cuba, we have the Nicaraguan Cigar Festival in January every year. And it's a great opportunity to go see some of the best cigar factories in the world and try. The rum is prevalent all week long. And if you get a chance, you come by our distillery. We have a tour. Everything's very open. Everything's very transparent. And you get to see our whole production process with your own eyes.
Sounds wonderful.
All right. Sounds like we're going to Nicaragua in January.
I'll see you in
All right,
January,
we'll
guys.
book it
Giddy
there.
up, kids.
Thanks, Luis.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
Thank you.
So, following the Nick Malila presentation was the annual Premium Cigar Association meeting, which is boring enough that we're not going to recap it. And then we went into the keynote address from the Padrón family, which was beyond impressive.
I mean, even before that started, we had bumped into George Padrón himself in the back of the room and had a great conversation with him. And he had said to us, wait until you see this video that I'm going to show of my father, this interview that they did years ago. And at the time, I expected it to be, a few minutes and something that was just a small part of the presentation. But it was, almost a documentary short film style presentation of what they did, and just so incredible and compelling, telling his father being able to really share from firsthand some of the things that are so important to him and that clearly to this day live on in how his son runs and operates Padrón.
Yeah. Honestly, as they were playing that film, we all have kids. If you don't have kids, you've got nieces and nephews. You've got some younger individuals in your family. And I got a little emotional. I've got a son at home, and I envision that path. And what if I had that with my son? And it was really very inspirational. It moved me. It's very moving.
I was choking back tears the whole
Yeah,
time.
me too.
I'll
A
be
little bit.
honest.
There was a little. It was
And
really quite something.
It makes you think about the thing that really tied it all together is the fact that George brought his whole family. They're all here.
Yeah.
And they're all class, and their presence is so professional.
Yeah, and we've said this the other day, that they look and act and behave like the first family of the cigar world, right?
Yeah, and everything is clean, right? There's nothing gaudy. It's traditional. That's the way they conduct their business. Everything is tied to integrity. Everything is tied to humility. They have all the kids taking orders, hustling.
Oh, yeah.
And he brought his whole family up on stage, and he was so proud. And to have that kind of,
Right.
the video and then the family, it was
And
wonderful.
truly, for the listener, when Grinder is saying the whole family, we're not just talking about his immediate family, like his wife and kids. We're talking wife, kids, grandchildren. I mean, little Rico, they had on the stage.
His nephew.
Got to be all of 7 years old,
Yeah.
maybe?
Yeah.
And talking about how he's the future, right? They're already thinking that far ahead of he's got to learn these lessons at such a young age. Like, George Padron was able to from his father is just so incredible. And to Bam's point earlier, so inspirational. And I think I felt the exact same thing. I mean, literally fighting back tears, just there was so much in there of how I try and aspire to live my life. And I think many of us on a daily basis. And to hear that all just brought together so neatly in a little, documentary like that was really, really moving. And I think the pursuit of truth and honesty and not being afraid. I mean, there was mention in there, the commitment to quality is so great. Padron is never going to apologize for at a point saying, maybe right now we need to scale back production a little bit because we cannot maintain quality based on some unforeseen challenge, right? Whether it's climate and weather, whether it's something happening in the market, whether it's labor, things that are happening in Cuba. We talk about the labor shortage during the pandemic. And, those are the times that honest businesses need to be willing to say, we've got to pull things back temporarily in order to preserve the integrity of our product. And to hear firsthand from Jose Padron, his father, that being so critical to the ethos of the company and brand that he built. And then later on, obviously, George Padron, being the steward of that. And clearly those kids and that future generation will hopefully uphold that as well.
Yeah. The theme was totally family. Like, it was really interesting from George Padron and his father, Jose Padron, when we saw the video. I think there are two things to be said, right? Obviously, there's a commitment to quality, which they don't compromise on, and family. I think they were the two recurring themes between everything they do and the fact that they brought the family on the stage and the way they're holding themselves and everybody's involved in the business. This is a true family business, guys.
Yeah. I think from the point of view of the legitimacy of the market, we all pursue the market. It's an incredible market. We love Padron. But Jose came here with absolutely nothing in his pockets. He started from nothing. True self-made man. And I think George, one of the reasons why he reveres his father so much is because he knows his dad started from absolutely nothing, went through hell for years and years and years. A lot of guys at this table started from nothing as well. We try to build our businesses on our own. There's a lot of identity there that we can identify with. And I think George has done an incredible job just bringing that through. And it comes through in his product and the way he holds himself and the way his entire family holds themselves. Regardless of how elegant they look and how successful they are, there's a strong backbone there.
Well, it's, this business is hard. That's one of the things we learned, even more so. This business is hard. But there's so many family businesses, family brands within the industry. And to have such an anchor as a family, and George kept referencing, this is not about me. Everyone has a role. I'm no more than the other. To have that kind of leadership. And that's what family's about too, guys, right? This is what we have our presence. Everyone has a role. Yeah. No, one is we each play our certain role
and everyone
have our own different
kind of
accountability. Yeah. How many times did we talk about accountability?
Too many times.
How many times?
Too many goddamn times. That's a topic for another day, boys.
But in all honesty, everyone holds each other accountable to delivering the family value and staying together. To be together for so long and to still have that bond. Family businesses are hard. We're all around family businesses.
Oh, sure.
And it's hard to keep it together. But that American story, it's so inspirational. We're all patriots here. We love America. We love cigars. And we love our families. And it was just so inspiring.
The other thing that really stood out is just the reverence for history and tradition. I think we've talked about in the past how Padron is one of those few brands that they don't come out with a flashy new release for every single holiday or every single thing happening like some brands do, and some do it well, many don't. And you heard him talk about how his father, he told the funny story of mustering up the courage, his words, to go into his father's office with a business idea, wanting to change the bands on Padrons from those brown, very simple bands that I think are basically like what's on the 1000 series.
Yeah, they're still there.
That's right.
Yep.
And thinking that they need something more ornate that better represents the quality, the high quality that they seek to deliver. And his father just kind of, he actually said he went on for about 30 minutes straight talking without his father saying a word. And he said, "Are you done?" And when George said he was done, his father said, "How many cigars have you sold?" And at that point, obviously, the answer was pretty much 0. And his father said, I've sold X million cigars.
80 million.
80 million
right.
cigars with those shitty bands on them.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that we need to change the bands on the cigar.
Get out of my office.
Get out of my office. And, George said for him it was a lesson, not that the idea itself was a bad one, but that the way he approached it was without reverence for the history and the tradition and making sure that doesn't get lost if they're going to make a change. And to me, I just think that has carried throughout its history, and it's their 60th anniversary, and he's talking about looking ahead to the next 60 years. And I just think that there are so many brands out there in cigars, but also other products that we consume that at one point or another we've said, wow, I used to love that brand, and they've just gone in such a radically different direction. I no longer identify with it anymore, and therefore I don't buy it. And it gave me just a lot of comfort in knowing that that's always going to be front and center, and I'm not going to have to worry that, the day I hand my son a Padrón, it's going to be a radical departure from what we're experiencing. And another just quick anecdote that I think illustrates that, he talked about how the strength of the Padrón cigar, how he went to his father and said, we're getting feedback that these cigars are just too strong for consumers. Maybe we need to change the blend. And his father said, we need to wait for the consumer to catch up to where we are. And the foresight that he had, that now you look at all these years later, he was right. I mean, the pursuit of a fuller flavored experience with a smooth delivery, I mean, that's the signature of Padrón. That's what's built them to where they are. And it's also true of many brands that we pursue.
Yeah, and I think George learned a lesson in how to protect your tradition. Jose was protecting that from the point of view of really high-level seriousness, because he did it alone, on his own, without any help, for years and years and years.
With that little hammer.
Exactly right.
So these conversations that Senator just detailed, that George was talking about his presentation, this all happened in 1993, 1994, shortly after George was instrumental in launching the 1964 anniversary series with the aged tobacco and all the things that have come since. It's really an incredible journey that they've been on, while always reflecting and keeping really, really close to in their hand the history and the legacy of the company.
I'm sorry, but for any NBA fans, I just have to point out, as we're recording this.
Oh, there he is.
There's two. You're going to be shocked when you hear the second one. Number one, 4-time NBA champion John Sally, who has his own cigars here, and he's brought a buddy of his, Ron Harper, from the Chicago Bulls.
Oh, wow.
These guys,
Right
I got to
over
go.
there.
Take it easy.
They are 20 yards from us right now.
Oh, my gosh.
Incredible. So speaking of new releases, boys, Padrón, through the keynote and through the celebration of the history of the company, is celebrating their 60 years in business with the launch of the Padrón 60th, which is a Perfecto 56 ring gauge at its widest point by 6.5 inches long. It's rolled by one person at their factory in Esteli, and looks like it's going to be coming out in September, which is incredible. It's a beautiful cigar.
And we'll know what the cost is roughly July, I'm told.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what I found interesting about it, too? We were just talking about the anecdote that Senator was sharing that George said about the band, is the band on this cigar is a new band for Padrón, but is really just a slightly nicer looking version of the 1000 series band. It is brown with the outline of Cuba, very similar to the 1000 series.
And a secondary band.
And there's a secondary band on it as well. But the primary band is just a glossy brown band.
It actually looks like a hybrid of the original 1000 series and the more, the modern Padrón band. It's a perfect hybrid.
The packaging and presentation of this new 60th celebration cigar from Padrón is really fantastic, and it's so different. Each of the cigars comes in a little cedar coffin inside a very, very ornate box, which comes then in another ornate box. This thing is not going to be cheap, boys.
If I'm not mistaken, every coffer or coffin is lacquer finished.
Oh, wow. I didn't notice that.
And the box itself that it's contained in is also high gloss lacquer finished. Extremely expensive to produce. Stunningly beautiful.
I mean, also hard to make.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not easy.
When we were talking with George Padrón right before he went on to give the keynote to kick everything off, he was talking about how, actually, number one, talking about Figurados, the Padrón 80th that we love so much, it was so funny to hear him say that his father did not want to make the 80th. It's too hard to roll. He had a number of concerns about it. And, that's where clearly George, has made his mark on the brand in pushing for, and obviously having it produced and it becoming easily a crowd favorite as far as anything that they produce. As many of us would argue it's one of the greatest cigars of all time.
Absolutely.
And then talking about how with the 80th, obviously it tapers at the head and the foot of the cigar, but in between that, it's pretty much a consistent ring gauge for most of the way through. With the 60th anniversary cigar, he was talking about how it actually flares out as you get closer to the foot, and how the proportion of tobacco that's inside is obviously changing as you gradually get closer and closer to that foot, and how extraordinarily difficult that is as a result for someone to roll, and how hard it was for them to find someone who's actually capable of rolling that consistently at scale.
It's not just one guy rolling it. It's one guy who had to practice for months.
Yeah.
He said it took him about 6 months to actually get it down to the point where it was a readily available cigar. And that's amazing, right? This one guy who's so skilled still had to spend so much time perfecting this.
So I'm assuming it's not going to be a large volume.
We asked him actually how many cigars an average roller rolls a day. He said 300.
Yeah, he said this guy's doing about 300 a day because he's in practice. He only rolls this.
That's incredible.
And I think, honestly, they've been backlogging that 300 a day for quite some time, probably going back to the end of last year.
Makes sense.
So by the time this comes out in September, there's going to be a good amount to get it on the shelves and then to continue to supply it as it's going to be needed. And George told us that it is going to be an ongoing release. It's not limited edition like the Padrón Fuente collaboration or some of the other things. It's going to keep being made, so it will be available for a very, very long time.
That's great. Looking forward to it.
So staying in the Padrón booth, the other big news coming out Saturday of the show at 4 p.m. was the launch of the collaboration between St. DuPont lighters and cigar accessories with Padrón. So now there's going to be all of the high-end St. DuPont lighters and accessories are going to have Padrón branding. The hammer's going to be on them, the Cuban logo. I mean, it's really, really beautiful stuff.
It's off the charts, really. Beautiful. And the intimate presentation with the two owners of both companies there, it was just really special. It's a special moment.
I mean, the funny thing is we were in the Padrón booth with George talking about this before the formal launch of the product, and him saying, he's like, I've seen countless prototypes, obviously, of everything that they were doing with St. DuPont. But he said he's actually never held the finished product in his hand. So even he was a little excited and nervous of like, wow, this is all going to be real. Yeah. And when they unveiled it, him talking about how his father never would have dreamed or imagined a luxury, iconic brand like St. DuPont partnering with Padrón on something like this, and how proud, I'm sure he would be.
Yeah. It was fun to see Alain, the CEO of St. DuPont, take out the lighter itself, transition it from the soft flame to the jet, and everyone was oohing and eyeing. It was really, special.
I was one of the oohs and ahs.
So
I didn't even know that product existed.
Correct. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I
need
wait
to get one of them.
And they've had that around for some time.
I've never seen it.
I remember when they released that maybe like 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Why didn't I get a gift? Where's my lighter?
This is back in the old days.
Look, some of us are a little cheap, man.
The thing that was so cool to see was George accepting the gift and seeing the visage of his father on the finish of the lighter, and you could tell it meant a lot to him.
Yeah.
And knowing, talking to Elaine as well, knowing how rich of a history they have with gifting. This is something that's timeless, that's classic, that's meant to last a long time, and you can see the legacy that the Padrón family continuously imbues within their product,
and the evolution of it as it merges with another global brand.
Iconic brand.
Really,
it's really impressive to see that, and the future projection for this is really incredible.
And like everything they do, the entire Padrón family was there front and center for that release. We were standing next to and chatting with George Jr., George Padrón's son, sort of laughing about there wasn't quite a microphone set up, so Gizmo was frustrated watching this unfold where he couldn't just jump in and fix it. But I think next year there'll probably be microphones at all of these.
We're going to have a little production conversation about that next year because, with the trade show is very, very loud. We brought some good equipment this time, so hopefully for the listener out there, it's not an unbearable experience hearing the crowd noise behind us and whatnot. But in the booth, that it is so loud. There's so many booths playing music of different kinds, and for George and Alon to be presenting this and just speaking without a microphone setup or any speakers. Most of the folks, I think, in that booth didn't hear much of what they had to say and are going to rely on the close-up video and microphones that are going to come out on social media later. So
They don't have a gizmo.
They need a gizmo.
They need a
Correct.
gizmo.
Hey, listen, I'm for hire, but the problem is, here's the problem, boys, is I don't think the hoodie thing is going to work with the Padrón family.
No, it
That's
ain't.
correct.
I don't think that's going
You're
to
going
work.
to be thanking us at this table.
You'll need more of those jackets, all right?
That was a perfect segue. We are talking about evolution, and to see the evolution
Of Gizmo?
of Gizmo,
Oh,
from the hoodie
yeah.
to the jacket, and really
Look at
taking
him.
on.
He looks like the CEO himself.
You look great.
Well done.
I can't wait to get a hoodie back on.
I think he has some product in his
we
hair
just
as
want
well.
equity in whatever business you start as a result of you wearing all this.
Exactly right. Well said.
So, boys, let's talk about some of the other booths that really, really impressed us. As Pagoda was mentioning earlier, I think one that we absolutely have to point to, just because, again, the tying to the lineage and the family history and the celebration of the patriarch of the family, the Arturo Fuente booth is just really incredible. There's pictures of the family everywhere. It's almost like a museum of the family's history,
But
more so than cigars.
Going back to the craftsmanship of some of these booths, his entire installation is black lacquer millwork with glass inlay panel and glass shelving. It's really, that is not easy to
I'm
make.
glad you're here. I'll be honest,
No.
because I would have been like, "Hey, the booth's great."
You sound. Bam sounds like Giz.
Do I?
You're the Giz of millwork.
I'm trying not to geek
Oh,
out here, but
Millwork. Yeah.
No, please geek out.
No.
I please tell us more.
I'm
Like,
it's just impressive. And if they're doing this, you mentioned that they likely use these over and over. If they're doing this one-off and they're doing it at every show, first the investment and the design, it just takes so much time and effort and an entire team to produce this.
They even had a life-size caricature of Carlito Fuente
true.
that Pagoda took some photos in front of.
And that's
And Grinder gave him a hug.
and by the way, that's a porcelain figure.
I gave him a hug in real life.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. Instead of giving him
Yeah.
a hug in real life, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's not glass, it's not plastic, that's porcelain.
that's got to be hard to ship.
Very, very
It
expensive.
was great. They had a little cart there for like Cuban coffee and some rum and stuff.
Yeah.
It was a great
Oh, yeah.
setup.
And we must mention, it was fantastic to meet Carlito Fuente himself. It was
Yeah,
our
incredible.
first time meeting him. He was so warm and welcoming, and we
Wasn't
had a
hard to
great
spot.
conversation.
Oh,
yes.
no. Bright yellow.
blazer, and
His
he was
hat.
just his magnetic self as always.
Oh, absolutely.
Just really kind
He is
with his time.
such a cool cat. I would love to just sit with him with a cigar and a drink and just chat.
He's a
Oh,
smooth
Oh,
operator.
very smooth operator.
You might say he has dick game.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he definitely has dick
That
game.
guy's a lizard.
He's
Times 10.
totally, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Very warm. Very warm.
Yeah.
we'll be doing that soon enough. We had a great chat with him,
Exactly
and
right.
he's excited to come on the pod. So
That's
looking
right.
forward to when we set that up.
Yep.
So, of course, the DuPont booth, as we mentioned a few times here, they had their own separate booth, very, very ornate. They had one of the 5 production thrones for Game of Thrones. They
Yeah.
made 5 for the show. One of them is in the booth here at the show.
Yep. From the point of view of the visual aesthetics of that installation, it not as ornate, but very minimal and modern. A lot of steel, a lot of glass, and the perimeters laid out with presentation stanchions that are
Bam, can we have you sit over there in the Game of Thrones like
sure,
the king? Yeah,
sure,
that'd be
sure,
great.
Sure. Now,
Lord Bam.
Again, the precision of ST DuPont comes through in their booth presentation and construction.
Oh, it's very, very in line
very
with their
nicely
brand.
done. Yeah.
Obviously, their partnership with Coles of London, they know how to do retail, right? And point of sale retail, and just the presence was really class again. To see, there's a lot of different brands here. Some are over the top, some are gaudy, some are class. They all have their own different fit within the this industry and with the spectrum of people who enjoy different tastes. We obviously have a certain palate for these things, that for cigars, for everything else in the brand. To talk to him about craftsmanship and the amount of work that goes into these products, and to see that showcased so beautifully and
Yes.
elegantly, it was really something to see.
So, boys, let's talk about the cigar and the pairing. What are you guys thinking?
It's quite nice.
I think this is a very, very good cigar.
It's a good cigar.
I am certainly enjoying this more than the Pledge prequel that we did. It's right there in line as far as my enjoyment with the La Historia El Senador that we've done. And, of course, the highlight, I think, from the brand that we've loved is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah,
which
so
did very
I'm
well.
about an inch and a half from the bottom. You guys may be a bit ahead of me. I'm getting pretty heavy cedar and earth notes. That slight dessert note that I had earlier is dissipated slightly, but still, it's very, very smooth. Very smooth.
I'm buying a box.
That's good.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
I can definitely slot it in at various times of my day.
Right.
I would love to give this. I would be proud to give it to somebody.
Sure.
And it seems like a unique cigar. You know, we were talking about the look of it is kind of
The wrapper's interesting.
it's very interesting.
Yeah, that marble.
The flavor is fantastic. It packs a punch, but not, as we were saying on the retro hell, not
Yeah.
so much that it knocks you on your knees.
Yeah, not aggressive at all. I agree. The thing I'm just amazed by, to me, it's a firmly medium cigar, and it slots honestly where a lot of Cuban cigars would for me. Like
I agree.
the fact that there's Nicaraguan tobacco in this. Most Nicaraguans I slot later in the evening. Really, when I'm looking for a fuller bodied experience, and I tend to slot Cubans early evening or even afternoon. I'd smoke this happily during the afternoon. I think the flavor is great. I love the baking spice on the finish
Right.
in this cigar. There's a lot of merit to what they've done with this.
Yeah.
No, it's been fantastic. I think what I've really enjoyed about it is you're getting a little bit of, the Cubanesque twang, but it's been medium. And I think towards the end, it does become a little more stronger for me, which is great. I'm really enjoying it.
So, boys, let's talk about some other booths that we've seen. Certainly one that is impressive in its own right, but a little loud and I hesitate to use the word gaudy, but
Yeah.
it's pretty loud.
It's a little rock and roll
It's a little
going
rock
on.
and roll. The Drew Estate booth is massive.
It is.
Highlighting certainly the collaboration with James Hetfield from Metallica. They have the new Shade to Black cigars they're releasing with him. Obviously, we did the M81 series on the podcast, and they have a wonderful booth there where they're handing out blackened bourbon whiskey,
Right.
Oh, they've got a full bar.
which
Oh,
was
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And we had, I believe it was a blended, right, Senator? We had the blended,
Yeah.
and it was very, very good. Very, very much in line with the one we did on the
Yeah,
podcast.
they had that and then a single barrel higher proof spirit, which I think at the time we walked through there, it must have been noon. I think it was like 94 proof or 95 proof. A little aggressive for that time of day, but we enjoyed the one that we reviewed on the pod. It was just as delicious as I remember.
Yeah, walking through this entire space, they're one of the 6, I think, presenters that have the larger footprints. They're definitely a prominent presenter here.
Oh, yeah, big time player.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So another booth that we randomly stumbled upon very early on the first day in the morning when we got here was Humidify Group. And the funny thing is we're just looking at the product and they had some cases, these like nice glossy cigar boxes at their booth. And we just struck up a conversation with one of the guys there. And I knew nothing about this brand. I don't think any of us knew anything about this brand or their product.
Mm-hmm.
And it was stunning. And it kind of goes back to when we talked about the very first video that shocked me when we arrived at PCA and the tie-in of Cuba and Cuban tobacco and Cuban cigar production. And the guy sitting there telling us that the overwhelming majority of these high-end lacquer gloss cigar boxes that are part of these really special Cuban cigar releases are all made by this company.
Yeah, that's a shocking detail.
He was talking
Yeah.
about the Bejique boxes.
Yeah, they
are
do
all
Bejique.
them.
Yeah.
All the new Bejique boxes. When we had Danilo on the podcast and we're talking about how they're microchipping the boxes because the boxes even obviously are being counterfeited so much.
So the conversation I had with the COO is that they've had long history, over 30 years of business.
Wow.
And they've made boxes for, you name the marca, they've made it. Cuban and New World. Really impressive.
Yeah,
Had
and
no idea.
I thought the thing I was impressed by is just the innovation. This is a company that makes high-end, glossy, nice-looking boxes.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say it, but you struggle to imagine how much innovation can really happen with a product like that. And to hear him say that the approach for most of their competitors is essentially to wait until the consumer or the retailer the manufacturer asks them for something, and then they go and manufacture it and customize it to their specific needs, and how they saw a market opportunity just starting with the microchipping piece of counterfeit boxes and what can they do. And they built this microchip technology and then went to these brands and said, this can help solve for your challenge. And it got bought and adopted. And so I'm just really impressed with the amount of innovation even that this company is
It's
doing.
interesting to see the amount of work that goes in the background.
Of course.
He was talking about the hinges on those boxes.
Yeah.
To every little detail, and even in certain boxes, certain branding. in those boxes. It's fantastic. It's an industry. We oftentimes will go buy a box or buy a cigar. There's so much behind it. It is really interesting
that we don't
to
realize.
learn.
Yeah, and they have an office right in Havana. He was telling us about,
wow.
which again just shocked me. I did not think I'd meet anyone at PCA that would say they have a physical presence in Cuba.
From the point of view of innovation, just to take off from where you stopped, they have a pack that changes in color as the ratio of humidity decreases. So if you buy a typical pack, you don't know how much humidity is there and how it dissipates. This thing will tell you as it's dissipating.
And to be even clear, it's almost like a throwaway Ziploc.
Yeah, it's incredible.
That has a little
a dial.
It has a hydrometer essentially.
Yeah.
So I want to be clear.
Amazing.
The thing that's different here, there are actually other brands that make products that are similar that have a dot that tells you by color if the humidity is too low or the humidity is just right. But you have no clue by relative humidity percentage
from the percentage
what
point of
it
view.
actually is at.
Exactly right.
What they've done is literally made like a disposable hydrometer that based on the color shade tells you if it's between 60 and 70, 50 and 60, how low or how high it is, which I don't think any of us had ever seen before. It was very cool.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's amazing how many brands they work with and the innovation, like you said, that they're doing.
Yep.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
It's been fantastic from the perspective that, just this trade show has been such an educational experience for us. And, hopefully, we are able to communicate that with you guys as well.
Yeah.
One of the things I was so happy to see here, we're literally staring at Prestige Import Group right now. Prestige Import Group, the maker, manufacturer, and distributor through their online website of my cabinet humidor, some of the other cabinet humidors of Lizards in here.
Correct.
I remember when I first went to that website, I'm thinking this rinky dink, like where it's going to come from. I had to get it specially shipped, and it's been phenomenal. It's a beautiful master. It's like a centerpiece in my great room now. To see them there, to have some representation here, and be like, you know what?
Yeah.
This is great, high quality. To have to talk to the salespeople about all the innovation they have forthcoming in their different showcases.
We've seen you do your spritzing in that thing.
I have.
Big spritzer.
This is where I lay my cards on the table. I have at times various
Accountability, Bam.
It was
Accountability.
I will say malfeasance on my part to just give a little spritz in the air of the humidor.
To each his own.
You don't spritz the cigars. Just spritz the side of the cedar just to kind of dampen it a little bit.
There you go.
Because I don't. It's a big cabinet.
It is.
And
a lot of wood there.
The Oasis that I had at the time could only go certain parts. It was split in half.
Yeah.
So I would just give a little spritz on the side of the cedar just to give it a little juice and ensure the humidity is there. So hey, hand up accountability. I'm not gonna lie there. I get a lot of slack for that kind of thing.
Rooster is going to be very happy to hear this because
Correct.
he was by far the most perturbed when he saw the spritzing.
Well, come on now. It's not that far gone though, is it?
No, it's not.
Let's
to each his own.
It may be, but we forgive you.
When you get a new humidor, you dampen the side of the cedar, right?
Yep.
Sometimes where my humidor is, it gets a little dried out, so I just gotta keep things fresh.
Yep.
So speaking of Cigar Oasis and humidification, it was nice to go to the
Very
Cigar
nice.
Oasis booth because we are all Cigar Oasis people.
Yeah,
We
and-
love their product.
And their staff there was fantastic.
It's great that we all eventually came around on Cigar Oasis. Right,
Now it's time for my accountability.
Oh, yeah.
No, that was great to see. And there were so many other booths that were absolutely excellent. I think Oliva's booth was very, very impressive.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
Another great booth, yeah.
Huge installation, beautifully done.
Very well crafted.
And some of the other, markers or brands that they clearly own, Aliados had its own setup. They were serving beer. I think they did a really nice job all around.
Pagoda, did you happen to see the Aliados beer cart?
Listen, I love.
Did he see it?
I love them.
Yeah. How many times did you visit it, Pagoda?
No, it's just that because
14,
I really appreciate
18,
hospitality.
24 times.
And
He had a full case of Stella from the Aliados booth.
One cup at a time.
but they were very hospitable.
Every time we looked around, as we're walking through the trade show floor, and we'd go, "Where's Pagoda's?" Up, he's getting another beer.
And then we found out that Rocky Patel had beer, so there wasn't as much guilt.
Yeah, Pagoda
on
was first
Pagoda.
in line.
He's practicing his lizard training very well here.
I got to shout out the Aliados people too. They were very, very helpful. We went over to get a beer, And I had a tag in the back of this dumb dress shirt that I'm wearing.
Oh, they do that.
Okay, that was
Here we
killing
go.
me.
No, that's an excellent shirt.
The other one. It was.
Yeah.
I had to cut the tag out.
Yeah.
And Grinder so masterfully saw the bottle opener with the little
Knife.
the little
Yep.
knife on it.
Yep.
And cut it out right in front of the Aliados booth. It was
Yeah.
really great. The
Worked
girls
well.
were impressed.
They were very impressed.
Grinder could be a surgeon. His hands.
Don't
precision-
go too far.
His precision knows no bounds.
Yeah, absolutely. His
Let's have him
hands,
practice on you first.
there was no tremor in his hands. Let's put it this way.
So what were some of the other booths that we saw that we enjoyed, or were there any disappointing booths that you guys saw?
Well, the Gurkha booth is substantial. It's sizable. It's all nicely done. I
Well-
can't speak to the market itself, though.
Can we talk about Gurkha for a second?
Yeah,
I
sure.
think we have to.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, not a brand that I
Let's
think
be
any
positive.
of us.
Let's be
Well, I'm
positive.
getting there.
Oh, I know where
I'm
we're
gonna
going.
Go there. Not a brand that I think any of us consume regularly, but they had a special guest. We
Correct.
heard announced over the loudspeaker
3 times.
on the trade show floor that Mike Tyson himself,
Iron Mike.
Iron Mike, was going to be at the Gurkha booth because he has his own cigar line through Gurkha. And we did get to see Mike, which was very cool. He's in phenomenal shape. So
Very
anyone waiting
intimidating.
for that fight that's coming up,
I think Jake Paul's going to have a problem.
I agree.
Oh, he looks ripped.
Dude.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson.
457. He is
Oh, yeah.
really, really in shape. Let's put it this way.
Incredible.
I tried to get Pagoda to go over and pick a fight with him, but he wouldn't do it. I don't understand why.
Neither do
He
I.
doesn't know. I know karate.
Karate.
So, you mentioned, any booths are disappointing. I think, credit to everybody. Obviously, they did, I think everybody did what they could within the resources that they have here. But one notable absence, I think we were all kind of surprised to see, is there was no Davidoff booth.
Correct.
Yeah,
Very
I
strange.
guess they're not a member of this of Premium Cigars, but it is odd, especially with how many brands they represent. To not see them have a presence at this show, it's a weird absence to me that they have no presence, and that maybe not even Davidoff itself, but their smaller brands that they represent are not even here. What we're talking Camacho, we're talking Avo. We're talking Davidoff proper.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, it's weird that none of them are here.
Really
in
upsetting.
any way.
It's true.
really upsetting. No free samples for me.
And it's just bizarre because when you think of premium cigars, I mean, you always think of Davidoff in that
course.
conversation. So I'm just shocked. I know they're a CAA member, Cigar Association of America, but I'm not sure what's going on, why they're not here at PCA.
Yeah. We're parked in back of this convention. I'm looking down the entire length here. To the right, Senator and I walk down. There are cigars that we've never heard of that have really beautifully, impeccably installed installations. Very small, but really well done. And I think this goes to what you said earlier. We hope for some of the better cigars that are starting out will improve and just get a bigger footprint here, for sure.
And like we were talking about, Nick Malello from Foundation Cigars
Of course.
was talking about how he started here 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Launched Foundation at PCA in the back right corner by the food court.
With a desk.
With a desk. And now he has a fantastic booth.
Yeah.
And I would argue, maybe aside from Padrón and Rocky Patel, he might have the busiest booth that I've seen at the show.
Oh, yeah.
And I would even say the most unique booth. I mean, it's funny. You look at a lot of these and they're going for this like luxury, refined kind of experience. And you look at the Foundation booth and they've got like wooden benches and what almost looks like picnic tables.
Yes.
And it's just a very rustic kind of outdoorsy style that stands out
Right.
really from any of the booths.
All that material is white oak in combination with pine, and it's finished with just a clear lacquer. It does give you the sense of that working type of a brand, and it perfectly suits Nick's approach because he's, like we said, he's ingrained in every step of the way. Visually, that comes through in his booth. It's very well done.
And he must be doing something right to the point that every single time we were near or
That's
around
mobbed.
that booth in 2 days.
Well, that
it
presentation
is
was off the
just-
charts.
I can't imagine that hurt. But
Right.
still, they must be doing something right as far as dealer support or deals that they're doing at the show here, or that consumers out there are just chasing down Foundation cigars.
Yeah.
That every single table, every single time we went through is full of retailers and people working for Foundation selling cigars. Of course, Nick had his own little kind of cubby office that he was working his ass off in. The booth was really, really busy.
It was rocking. Yeah.
All right, boys, what are you guys thinking about the cigar and the rum pairing tonight?
I just have to say, I think we're having so much conversation. I had to relight this because I hadn't tended to it for a while. I'm well into the last third, and the relight is spectacular.
Yeah.
Pagoda was talking about how it picks up a bit in strength in the last third. It's like just the right amount. It's still smooth. I'm getting all the same flavor notes I got initially in a really defined way that I can still pick out. I'm very happy with this cigar.
Yeah, that early cinnamon does continue to carry through, but I'm getting a slight white pepper, which I happen to love. I do love that if it's delivered in a smooth manner, which this does very well.
And also, look at the smoke output on this thing.
Dude.
It's incredible.
It's
The combustion's
amazing.
great.
It's fantastic.
And we're in a huge room, and
Right.
there's a cloud over us.
And it feels like it's such a great medium cigar.
Yeah.
It's not overpowering.
Not at
it's
all.
not strong. So you can actually slot it, like for me, like early in the morning or afternoon. I'm more than happy to pick one up. Or even if you want to start the evening, it's something I look forward to doing.
The retrohale all the way down has been glorious.
And I have to say, the rum pairing with this Flor de Caña, the sweet rum notes that you get just accentuate, I feel like, the baking spice that you get in this cigar. So for me, it's a perfect pairing because the cigar is not overly sweet. So I feel like rum actually helps bring out some of the dessert notes even more in a cigar like
That's
this
true.
and pairs perfectly.
I think that because the cigar to me, I would say is tart forward. That's kind of the word that I'm using to describe the flavor profile.
Yeah.
Pairing it with a sweet rum like this, a refined rum like this, it's really, it's a perfect balance.
Can we talk about
Exactly
that,
right.
though? I'm not sure that I agree that this is a tart-forward cigar. To me, this is extremely well-balanced.
It is-
I just say
yeah,
that because,
of course.
I think, maybe the tartness you're describing, for me, it's like the cedar is, what does that. But the baking spice is prominent enough that I feel like they're almost equally dancing as I'm smoking the cigar.
Now,
But
for
that's
me,
my
that
perspective.
baking spice is more cinnamon for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
And, something to say about the pairing. The rum it's got like a medium finish. So it's not really lingering in your mouth and overpowering the cigar as well. I think in its own right, they've been reasonably complementary.
By the way, what happened to the rum?
We drank it.
I don't think so. Bam Bam's hiding it over
Bam
there.
Bam's hiding it.
All
I
right,
need a refill.
accountability.
Oh, boy.
So this is not a consumer show. As we mentioned on our preview episodes a couple times, this is not a show for the end user. This is for members of the Premium Cigar Association, which are mainly retailers and distributors, as well as exhibitors or manufacturers, and media, which we are.
Right.
And there's a couple media outlets here. I saw Half Wheel,
Yep.
Developing Palates was here, Cigar Coop was here. There's quite a few media here, which is nice to see, covering the event and celebrating premium cigars. But I really have to point to our listeners who put together, unbeknownst to us, a little event that they invited us to pretty last minute over at Resorts World. And we went over there and met some of the listeners, specifically Tuxedo Timmy, as he calls himself, out of Denver, Pine Tree Land, and a few other friends. And we had a fantastic night with some of the listeners of our podcast.
Such a great time.
It was a proper Lizard meet and greet.
Absolutely.
I mean, some of these people who write us regularly clearly listen to the podcast and are bought in on everything that we try to espouse. The time we got to spend with them, honestly, was as enjoyable as the time we've spent with any of the biggest names in this industry. I'm really, really glad that we got to do that.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was so floored with was it was so affirming to what we do, to hear, almost word for word some of the tasting references we've had, to talk to hear the editorialization of various episodes. They knew episodes better than we did.
True.
Giz was talking about
when they identify with an episode that rings true to them, they'll remember that. Yeah.
they remembered literally specific conversations.
That I did not remember.
Yeah.
And I listen to this more than anybody because
You're a
I edit
producer.
it,
You're
everything.
producing, yeah.
And it just like, once it's done, it leaves my brain. And I
Correct.
said something, I think I was saying to Senator, did we do this cigar? And Tuxedo Timmy jumped in and goes, oh yeah, you did it. And here's the episode you did it on. And it was amazing. It was really pretty powerful for me.
Yeah. I was also very impressed, I have to say, the cigar selections. I like to observe what guys are smoking in a sit like this, and they were really pulling out some very impressive sticks.
Oh, that was some heavyweight
Oh,
stuff. Some
absolutely.
heavyweight. And the thing that was the most shocking to me, talking to these listeners, was asking how long they've been smoking cigars.
Oh, yeah.
And I couldn't believe that the overwhelming majority of people we met really got into this hobby during the pandemic in the early days when we started this podcast.
Or earlier, maybe only 2 years for you,
Right.
for most of them.
And how we've been literally along with them on this journey from their start was just shocking to me.
Oh, yeah.
And I couldn't believe, too. It's like, I think some of us at this table have been really quick students of this hobby.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Gizmo certainly stands
And
out
of
as one
wardrobe and fashion.
Correct.
That too. Well,
It is a
not,
lifestyle.
not quick on that. It
I
only
can-
took,
I can-
it only
wait.
took 2.5 years to get Gizmo
You know,
to
I
go
can
with a
sense
blazer.
your pride. I'm back. I'm behind you all the way.
Listen, it's our first trade show.
Well
I
done.
nailed the first trade show. It's not like we've gone to other trade shows and I
100%.
wore a hoodie, man.
100%.
We've gone to some nice restaurants and Gizmo's basically shown up in a hoodie, but
In the
we'll
past.
let it go.
These
now.
things take time. These things, it's part of the narrative.
Correct.
Right? Brick by brick. We're talking about brick. You have to build this thing brick by brick.
Yes, sir.
He started off with nicer shoes. He got himself some nice pants. He
Yeah.
got himself a shirt.
But the jacket was the icing on a cake, man.
Now he's a full man.
Oh, yeah.
So this is natural evolution.
Yeah. Full on lizarding now, boys.
Correct.
So we have to thank the listeners again.
Thank you so much.
For that
And it was
event.
very enjoyable. It was a lot of fun. We were having some good
Oh,
laughs.
yeah.
I went with one of the guys and we placed some bets. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man.
I must say, I gotta give credit to Tuxedo Timmy, who showed up with some amazing gifts for us.
So
I mean,
generous.
by the way, not even knowing if we were going to be able to make it there, really came prepared.
Yeah, Tuxedo Tim, thank
was
you. Very
awesome.
generous.
But the big one was for Senator here. You were blown away.
I mean, I was floored. It's just the fact that he had labeled these gifts for each of us by name.
Yeah.
And curated. Some of them were cigars for us to review on the podcast, which we're really excited to do in upcoming
Yeah,
episodes.
we're going to do some, there's some killers.
Oh, yeah.
We have some good ones
Oh,
coming
yeah.
up.
But there was also stuff in there that was meant to smoke and enjoy with him there. And he knew our palates so well. And in mine, I mean, one was a 2014 Partagas Limitada. To see a Partagas in there, at just that alone,
Sure.
to know how much I love and appreciate that brand. And that Limitada was one of the best Partagas cigars I've ever had. It was outstanding.
I came in and I lit up a QD54. That's, you guys know, that's my palate.
He gave you a
He
QD.
gave me a QD. He's like, this
Limited
is for you,
edition.
Brian.
And he knew
He knew.
based on the pod.
Listen, that
man.
one was a little more surprising. I mean, Senator talks about his love of Partagas every episode.
That's true.
Let's just be honest.
Even in his sleep. he
I
talks
mean,
about
he's
Partagas.
constantly talking
Just in
about
case anyone forgets how great Partagas is.
We sat down at dinner the other day. He goes, my favorite brand is Partagas. I'll have the Caesar
He
salad
starts
and
every
the filet.
text message with Partagas, and then he goes into whatever he wants to talk about.
the same with Padrón, nonetheless.
That's true. That's very, very true. So yeah, that was great. And for us, I think it reaffirmed our desire, to really put some great listener events together. So we're seriously considering doing that, and maybe even some trips to Cuba at some point with listeners. So it really, for me, solidified a lot of that listener experience stuff that we can spend time with our listeners who have been so generous and great.
that potential future planning of those events.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we are full on going to be doing that
Awesome.
at some point in the future.
I think the thing also that's remarkable is, Lizard Nation is so strong that lizards travel. The folks that we actually met here, these listeners, they don't live in Vegas.
Oh, no.
And they're not coming to the show because
Right.
it's not a consumer show.
Exactly.
Correct.
They were here to meet up and be able to enjoy cigars with us and others that are like-minded. And I was really impressed to see that.
Absolutely.
Lizards fly.
They
Let
do.
it be known. Lizards can fly. And we saw lizards from Ohio, Pennsylvania,
Denver.
Colorado, all over the
Yeah.
map. And, obviously to have that reception and enjoy their time and to have, we had some really fascinating conversations. And these are the conversations that we have with each other in our lounge.
Yeah.
And to have that again and share the experience, that's what it's all about.
Yeah,
This
and
is
that's
why we're doing it.
This thing of ours, that's the beauty of what we're doing. That conversation just comes out naturally,
So, boys, we're coming to the end of our evening here with the EP Carrillo Allegiance in Sidekick. Any final thoughts before we move into our cigar rating here tonight?
It's just a wonderful pairing.
I'm getting on the very tail end of this now, like a salty minerality in the
that's there.
cigar
Yes,
no
it's
doubt
there.
about it.
that I
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
really like.
Oh, yeah.
And that note took until I have, half an inch left on an inch, at most 3/4 of an inch left on this cigar.
Yeah.
I can't believe this far down I'm getting something new that I didn't get in the rest of the stick.
I
This
want
is
to
great.
walk down and hug Mr. Carrillo for this cigar.
Let's do it.
Let's do that.
I'll send a picture out to the listeners of Bam, just totally covering
He's right there.
Ernesto Carrillo. All right, boys, it's time to move into the formal lizard rating tonight of the EP Carrillo Allegiance in Sidekick. Senator, I think for the first time, you're up first.
Giddy up.
I'm glad this is an easy one. Absolute 9. I have not wavered one bit throughout this cigar. When this started, I said to myself, if this can finish like this is going to get a high score. And the fact that down the stretch in the last third, I'm enjoying this even more than it started. A solid 9. I think that this is a cigar that has really broad appeal. This is not a cigar that is filled with Nicaraguan tobacco that I would say is just for some smokers that like a full-bodied experience. It's medium, but even for those who like a full-bodied experience, it has enough legs to it that I think it will satisfy someone who's looking for that. For someone who likes a milder cigar and wants to just dabble with something with a little more flavor, I actually think that they could potentially enjoy this cigar too. And the versatility of this cigar, I would smoke this at almost any time of day. I'll definitely smoke one of these again. It's a strong 9 for me.
So I'm also going to give this a 9. I'm amazed at how Ernesto Carrillo and his family have blended cigars that are so different. You think about how different this is from the La Historia El Senador, from the Pledge series.
It is unique.
People love,
Yeah.
and obviously
Sure.
Cigar Aficionado rated so high. The Pledge of Allegiance, which is a little bit of a diversion with the American tobacco. I'm really, really impressed with this cigar tonight. I came in a little hesitant. I'll be honest. I didn't know about the humidity like Senator talked about. Thankfully, in those bags, it was stored well and it was ready to be smoked. And tonight, it gave us a fantastic, fantastic experience. So I'm very, very happy with that. Pagoda.
Wow. I think I like everything Allegiance. Their Pledge of Allegiance was fantastic. This is Allegiance. It's fantastic. Like I mentioned, you had the Cuban twang, and I think I was experiencing the salty minerality, which is what I call the Cuban twangish throughout the cigar. And you're right. Towards the end of the cigar, it did pick up in strength and brought about those flavors. I think it highlighted some of them. It was very, very good. It's excellent smoking experience. The smoking output was fantastic. The construction was good. I really enjoyed it through and through. It's a definite 9 for me.
All right, Grinder.
I think if I were to describe the cigar in one word, I would say Epicurean, because I think this cigar would pair well with the various spectrum of dishes. Because I feel like this would be great with the fish dish.
It'd be great with a steak.
The saltiness, much like you season a fine dish, there's so many different parts of my palate on my tongue that we're getting hit. And going through it, their smoking experience was phenomenal. I think if, with the sweetness of the rum, the depth of the rum, the richness, it's certainly elevated and enhanced that. The whole experience, it's a 9 for me.
Yeah. I can't argue with any of the ratings. I'm at a 9 as well. I think this cigar showed itself to be a very complex cigar. Initially, right on a light, the dessert notes hit you right in the face, heavy cinnamon and some beautiful earth notes in the back. But as it evolved, I got a little bit of coffee and cocoa. But toward the end, as Senator mentioned, that minerality, that saltness, and for me, a little white pepper. But the entire thing was delivered in this creamy delivery. Very complex, very complicated, sophisticated cigar. I'm at a 9.
I'm curious to, I would love to hear Senator see how he would pair it with a well-balanced wine.
A wine, yeah.
Because I think it would go great with the wine as well.
For me, as a novice, a dry finish wine, a dry wine would be beautiful with this thing.
Yeah, I agree. I actually think this cigar would pair really well with like a Bordeaux-style blend. I think just dry enough, but not overly dry. Mm-hmm. The reason the rum worked really well with this is because Flor de Caña, as we heard Luis talk about, doesn't add sugar to their product. So this is just from the natural sugar cane in the distillation process. And it's just the right amount. And it helped accentuate some of those dessert notes that we got.
Sure.
But it wasn't so much that it was overpowering the cigar. And I think with wine, like a California Cab that's going to skew much sweeter would probably overpower the cigar. And that's where I think some sort of Bordeaux-style blend that's really balanced, is a bit dry but not too dry, has just enough sweetness like this rum does to bring out some of those dessert notes, I think would pair perfectly.
Yeah,
we'll have to do that.
Absolutely.
So, boys, that puts the formal lizard rating, very easy math tonight here in Vegas, at a 9.0.
Well done, boys.
So let's compare that to the 3 other EP Carrillo cigars we've done on the podcast. First up was the cigar of the year 2 years ago, the Pledge Prequel. We did that on episode 5. We gave it a 6.5. It did not perform well at all. On episode 19, we did the La Historia El Senador, namesake of our friend here, the senator. That got an 8.8, so this slightly edged that cigar out. And
Sure.
I agree with that.
I think it's accurate.
I
Yeah.
think the last third really, really solidified that 9,
Agreed.
edging it out a little
Agreed.
I would pinpoint, I think, what sets this a bit apart from that La Historia, it's more complex.
I
Agreed.
agree.
And sophisticated.
Yep.
Yeah.
And finally, boys, on episode 87, around July 4th of 2023, of course, we did the Pledge of Allegiance.
America.
We can't forget about that.
Every day's the 4th of July for Bam.
Absolutely, especially with that cigar. And
That's
by the
right.
way, Ernesto Carrillo told us that cigar is probably going to be coming out again this year. So
Yes.
we're
Is that right?
very,
We can't
very,
wait.
very excited
Need to
about
collect that
That's
box.
exciting.
I'll make sure I'll get a few boxes.
Yeah,
of
we're
that.
gonna give him to us.
We're gonna have to
Correct.
tell him when we have him on the pod, which he's very excited to come on.
Yeah.
We're gonna need to smoke one of those again.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So on episode 87, we did that cigar. It was a 9.6. That
Wow.
was one of the best cigars
Delicious.
we reviewed all of
Delicious
last year.
cigar.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So again, we have to give a very special shout out to Luis Baez, the global ambassador of Flor de Caña rum, and giving us this amazing bottle of 20-year age rum
Such
tonight.
a great guy. Very
Thank you for that.
personable. Yep,
What a
thank
great
you.
pairing. Excellent. Certainly encourage all listeners to go out. If you're a rum person, go out and buy a bottle of this for somewhere between $100 and $120.
Yep.
It's a great, great rum.
Oh, yeah.
And a final thank you to the listeners, because we would not be here as part of the media had we not had the following that we're so grateful to have.
Absolutely.
And that's a theme. We're very grateful for your your participation
And
in this
support.
passion of
Sure.
ours, to share it with listeners here, to share it with all these professionals in the industry, and for us to see it firsthand. Thank you to the listener.
It's a blessing. Yeah.
It is a blessing.
Yeah.
And just one other thank you I definitely want to mention is just a thank you to the Premium Cigar Association, who's been very hospitable to us here as media to be able to do this, and who clearly runs an excellent trade show. I mean, we were chatting with a few of the PCA staff members early on when we got here. One of the guys, this is his 18th trade show that he's been at, and just had nothing but great stories to share about what the experience has been like. And I think the proof's in the pudding for us to hear from so many big cigar brands talking about how they started as a little mom and pop operation here, the Nick Melillos with a table in the back, who's now got one of the biggest booths here right up front when you walk in the trade show, is a testament to what PCA is doing here.
Agreed.
Absolutely, boys. And what a great night. What a great weekend. And in 2 weeks, we're going to continue maybe some final thoughts of PCA, takeaways as we kind of distilled and synthesized and digested what our experience has been here this weekend. So we'll share a little bit more about that. And I think it's important to note we have a ton of content coming up because of this PCA show. We have a lot of interviews lined up. We're excited to share those with you.
Extraordinarily exciting.
Yeah, we have a lot of great stuff coming because of this weekend at PCA, so we can't be thankful enough. So, again, boys, tonight on the podcast, the Carrillo Allegiance in Sidekick got a 9.0, and it was a great night and a great trade show, boys. I'm so happy that we were able to do this together. And we'll see everybody next week. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for joining us. You can find our merch store and ratings archive at our brand new website, loungelizardspod.com. That's loungelizardspod.com. Don't forget to leave us a rating and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. If you have any comments, questions, if you want to reach out, say hello, tell us what you're smoking, email us, hello@loungelizardspod.com. You can also find us on Instagram @loungelizardspod. We really appreciate your time, and we'll see you next week.